Today I'm showing you step by step how to make these amazing tiramisu cake tacos. I'll talk you through my entire recipe development process of transforming the world's most famous dessert into something I bet you haven't seen before, and how I made this into my best tiramisu creation ever.
My name is Louise and I'm a self-taught cake artist. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create the most amazing tiramisu cake tacos. We all know the classic tiramisu, so I wanted to create a modern version that I bet you haven't seen before. In addition to the classic coffee and mascarpone flavors, this version has more textures and tasting elements, and it's wrapped in a unique design in the shape of a cake taco. I'm going to show you the process behind developing this cake recipe, the challenges I faced when recreating the world's most classic dessert, and how I made this into my best tiramisu creation ever. To make this cake, I'm also going to show you how to master the following techniques: how to make the most fudgy brownie, delicate homemade ladyfingers, a crispy almond Amaretto Nougatine, a velvety mascarpone ganache, a super creamy mascarpone whipped ganache, and a beautiful ribbon piping pattern. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any new tutorials. I'm going to show you how to make the following layers: chocolate brownie, ladyfingers soaked in coffee, mascarpone white chocolate ganache, mascarpone vanilla whipped ganache, almond nougatine with amaretto, cocoa shortcrust taco shells, and chocolate decoration. Okay, let's get started.
One of the most important things to consider when making cake tacos is that the filling needs to be somewhat stable, otherwise it won't be pleasant to eat, as the filling will fall out when you eat it. I therefore decided to make my very favorite brownie. This brownie recipe is a staple in many of my recipes, as I just think this really is the best brownie. Since I wanted the brownie to have an intense chocolate flavor, it's mainly made with dark chocolate that I add to melted butter. We then whisk in sugar, eggs and a little flour and a pinch of salt. The fact that the batter is mixed with a hand whisk makes the batter super fudgy, which is exactly the consistency we're going for. I lastly add in some chopped milk chocolate to lift the bitter chocolate flavor a bit. Pour the batter in a pastry ring and bake it for 20 to 23 minutes at 180 degrees. Then it needs to cool off completely. There's many ways you can make cake tacos and how to assemble the filling, and the way that I always do it is by cutting the brownie here in pieces that fits a 10 cm diameter mold. One mold here is filling for 2 cakes, so I'm putting 2 pieces of brownie facing each other in the middle of the mold. I then put the brownie in the fridge while preparing the ladyfingers. If you've never made homemade ladyfingers before, I really urge you to try it, because it really makes it different from the ones you buy, and since this is a cake tiramisu, we gotta go all the way. We here start out by separating the egg yolks and egg whites, and beat the egg whites with a hand mixer until soft peaks form. Then I'm gradually adding sugar to make it into a stiff meringue. In another bowl, I'm mixing egg yolks, sugar, vanilla and salt until the mixture gets a lighter color and thickens a bit. And now to the important part of mixing in the egg whites. Here we gotta be careful not to overmix, as we just only want to combine briefly, as we don't want to beat the air out of the egg whites, since this will lead to flat ladyfingers. Lastly, I'm adding flour and cornstarch to the dough before piping ladyfingers with a round pastry tip. I make the ladyfingers in the same length as I would do for a tiramisu, as we'll cut off the ends later, so we're only using the middle/widest part of the ladyfingers, since this will give the most sharp cake cut. I briefly sprinkle with sugar and bake them for 8 to 10 minutes at 175 degrees until lightly golden. It's very important that the ladyfingers dry overnight, as this ensures that they will absorb the coffee mixture well. I therefore actually made the ladyfingers the day before I made the brownies, so there was enough time for them to cool. For the coffee syrup, I'm mixing espresso and Kahlua and quickly dip the ladyfingers in the syrup before cutting off the ends and placing them in the mold next to the brownie. Now we can see that the brownie and the soaked ladyfingers both have the same height as the mold. While we start prepping the next layer, I'm putting the mold in the freezer where the ladyfingers needs to set before the ganache can be added. To add a rich flavor to the cakes and balance the strong chocolate and coffee flavors, I decided to make a mascarpone ganache. At first, I thought I was going to make a chocolate ganache or a ganache with both coffee and mascarpone, but I decided that this would give a too strong chocolate or coffee flavor, as the key flavors in a tiramisu should be the perfect balance between a rich coffee and a creamy mascarpone. So I ended up making a ganache with a pure mascarpone flavor. This ganache has a bit of gelatin to increase its stability, as the amount of mascarpone otherwise will make the ganache too soft, and we need a bit of a firmer structure for this kind of cake so it doesn't splash out when eating it. We then hand blend the ganache and only just here as the mascarpone. The reason why it's not added before is because we don't want to heat mascarpone, because this ruins the stability we need for this ganache, and we want to keep it nice and super creamy. The last step is to fill up the molds with the ganache and freeze the cake inserts fully overnight. The main decorative element of these cake tacos is a ribbon pattern between the taco shells. We therefore need a cream that's stable and pipable, but still has a texture and flavor that's delicious to eat. So I've here made my very favorite whipped ganache recipe, where I've added mascarpone and vanilla to get a flavor that's similar to the mascarpone cream in a classic tiramisu. I start out by chopping white chocolate and cutting the vanilla bean. After it's set for around 1 to 2 minutes, we add cold heavy cream and blend again. Using both hot and cold heavy cream ensures a smooth emulsion, prevents spitting, and helps the ganache whip up light and airy before we lastly hand blend in the mascarpone. I pour the cream in a bowl, cover it with cling film on the top, and then it needs to set overnight before we decorate the cakes the next day. To assemble our cake tacos, we need the most iconic part, which is the taco shells. Here I prefer to use my pâte sablé biscuit cocoa recipe, as it gives an extra crispy texture that adds some crunch to the cake. I was going a lot back and forth whether I should include coffee here or not, because I wanted to add a bit more coffee flavor to the cakes, but I also didn't want the dough to be too bitter. To balance the flavors, I decreased the amount of cocoa powder a bit and added more eggs to make room for more dry ingredients with the espresso powder to still get a buttery dough. To make the pâte sablé, I'm mixing flour, almond flour, cocoa powder, espresso powder, and icing sugar and salt before I add grated cold butter. I mix the butter with the dry ingredients until the dough has a sand-like texture and there's no big pieces of butter left. Then I briefly, and only briefly, collect the dough with the egg, as we don't want to knead the dough too much. This is very important, as we don't want to heat up the butter, because this can make the dough too elastic and compromise the tender texture that we're going for. I then roll out the dough between 2 pieces of parchment paper and let it set in the fridge for 2 hours before starting to cut the taco shells. I'm here using an oval shaped pastry cutter at 13 cm long, but you can also use a normal round pastry ring that you bend to an egg shape. I cut the circles into 2 half circles, so each circle contains taco shells for 1 cake taco. Lastly, I bake the taco shells at 175 degrees for 10 to 12 minutes and let them cool on a baking cooling rack. And now to our last cake insert, and one of my favorites, which is the most amazing almond nougatine with amaretto. As you know, I don't like to make anything without crunch, so I had to add a crunchy element to these cakes, and since this is a tiramisu cake taco, I thought making something with focus on almonds and amaretto would be the perfect thing to resemble the flavors from the classic tiramisu. We make the nougatine by chopping almonds finely and mixing soft butter, sugar, glucose syrup, and the chopped almonds with a hand mixer. I mixed in amaretto and whisk again. I then roll out the dough between 2 pieces of parchment paper to make a thin layer and remove the first parchment paper. We then bake the nougatine at 170 degrees for approximately 15 to 17 minutes until it is fully golden. Then, as soon as the nougatine comes out, you gotta be quick here, I immediately cut 3 circles with a 10 cm diameter cookie cutter and cut each circle into 2, so we end up with 6 half circles in total. After the nougatine has cooled, I'll break off the 6 half circles, and then we are almost ready to assemble the cakes. To give the tacos a consistent look, I wanted to add chocolate half circles on both front and back of the taco and also decorate with chocolate straws. When using chocolate decoration on my cakes, I usually prefer using the exact same color, as this gives a more dreamlike look and aesthetic. So I use the same base tempered chocolate to make the chocolate half circles, as well as the chocolate straws. I went for a beige shade that to me resembles something like a mocha color that matches the inside of the taco. And if you want to learn more about how I create the half circles and the chocolate straws for these cakes, you can check out my chocolate decoration courses on my website. In the courses, I also teach you how to temper chocolate and how to create my 10 signature decorations that I use on all my cakes. Now we are ready for the final assembling of the cake tacos. After prepping everything, we can now assemble our tacos. I first removed the frozen brownie / ladyfingers / ganache inserts from the mold and cut them in 2 so we get 6 half circle inserts. While the inserts defrost just a little, as this will make them stick to the shells better, I glue 1 almond nougatine on the back side of 1 taco shell per cake, so each cake has 1 half circle of nougatine. We then take 2 taco shells and put the frozen insert in between, while gently squeezing to make sure they stick together. The chocolate half circles are then glued to the front and the back of each taco with a little melted chocolate. I've taken out our whipped mascarpone ganache that's been setting overnight, and I whip it to a thick consistency before putting it in a piping bag with a petal pastry tip. First, we make sure to fill the remaining space in the cake taco with the whipped ganache, cleaning the edges with a finger to get a fully sleek layer of the cream. With a firm pressure on the piping bag, I pipe a layer of the whipped ganache in a ribbon pattern from one side of the taco to the other side. You'll get the most aesthetic pattern and the most straight pattern if you pine the ribbon pattern in one go. And for the final touches, I'm decorating with chocolate straws and small flowers. And then that's how I make the most cute tiramisu cake tacos. I made many tiramisu creations in my career, but I gotta say that these ones truly are my very favorite. They have the perfect flavor balance between coffee and mascarpone, some modern elements with the brownie and the almond nougatine, and then they're just fun to eat. I love the look of the cakes with the ribbon pattern and the mocha colored chocolate decoration that resembles the inside of the cakes that truly taste amazing.
I honestly cannot get over how good these cake tacos are. Truly amazing, like the flavor. It's like everything that I want in a tiramisu, but just somehow better. This one just feels like a modern elevated version with like crunch, the almond nougatine with amaretto, the ganache, so like more textures. It's fun to eat, it's fun to make. I really cannot stop eating this one. I hope you get the chance to make these tiramisu cake tacos at home, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe, and you can also check out my Entremet cake playlist here. See you in the next video.